Hey guys, it's Trista with Mommy Upgrade. Me and the Cupcake today are out on a field trip and we've come out to Indigo River Tiny Homes because tiny homes, right? Everybody wants to know about tiny homes. So this is a builder here in Dallas, and well, actually Garland, and they've got some really cool models, and we wanted to take you on a tour and show you a little bit about one of them and introduce you to the owners of the company. So let's go inside and we're gonna check out this one that's called Baby Blue.
Ready?
Yep. So this is Peter, the owner of Indigo River Tiny Homes, and Kyle, the marketing manager. So guys, tell us about why you got started in this business and the whole tiny home movement in Dallas in general.
Well, my background is in remodeling and general construction, and I started looking at tiny houses a little over a year ago, and I just kind of fell in love with the whole concept of the tiny house movement. And one of the things I really love about it is I'm a bit of a minimalist myself, and I like the simplistic lifestyle that it affords people. And the other thing that really drew me to the tiny house movement was the collaborative nature of the tiny house movement. So people in the tiny house movement, because it's such a small niche market, really, everybody kind of knows everybody, and everybody helps everybody out, and so it's very it's a very tight knit community.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are deciding that what they value most in life is meaningful relationships and more time to spend with the people that they care about, and experiences, and getting to have experiences, and owning a large 2,000 plus square foot house and up, and paying a big 3-year mortgage on it is not something that they want to devote a large amount of time and energy of their life to. So the idea of living a little more simplistically and doing something that's a bit counterculture, people have kind of started to decide that that is what they want. That is what will make them most happy.
There's a large part of the movement here is the baby boomers who are empty nesters, and they want to downsize. They don't want to have the big yard to take care of anymore, and don't want all the maintenance and upkeep of a large house. So they want to simplify their life and save some money, and so they'll sell their big house and move into a tiny house. So that's a big part of it. There's also people who just, or millennials is another large section of it, who just don't want to spend all their money on housing, which in Dallas the housing prices have really gone up for the last few years, and all over the country. So that's part of what fuels the movement as well.
So there's also people too that want to turn this into a sort of investment rental income as well. That maybe want to park it somewhere and rent it out, which is a good idea, because since it is a new idea, tiny houses are, there's a big market, a big demand for people who want to rent them out and try them out first, see if this really is something that they can live and exist in. So people looking into purchasing a tiny house as an investment rental is also a large percentage of people who are interested.
And then there's also the people who just want it for a little vacation place, put it out on their property, put it out by the lake, and just someplace to get away for the weekend. Okay, so the most common thing, probably the most common feature, is probably washer dryer. So
Right.
So there's in a tiny house there's not a lot of space, so most people end up putting an all-in-one. So they have these washer dryer units that's just one unit that washes and dries all in one. So that's what typically most people put in a tiny house.
Okay.
And that's probably the number one request. Can you put a washer and dryer in it? Yes.
We're also getting a lot more requests for a sleeping area that they don't have to crawl around on their hands and knees. People aren't as willing or as enthusiastic about lofts where you have to hands and knee it, it's a lot of people don't
No
like
army
that.
crawls.
Yeah, so, but the thing with lofts is that it does add a lot of square footage, a lot of more space to an already limited interior. So what we're doing currently is trying to answer those questions, trying to find that happy balance, and we've developed what's called a split level loft. So the way that works is we have images on our website too, but you'd go up about 4 flights of stairs, and then you can walk into your loft, and your bed is on a higher level. So you can get changed with a wardrobe right here, and then just kind of roll into bed. And you'd still have that high ceiling right here underneath. So for more square footage.
Yeah,
Is
so
that a
no,
good
no hands and
description?
knees. Yeah.
So it's hard to describe
Yeah.
without a picture.
Sure,
but
yeah, that's okay.
Especially for our baby boomers, that that's what something that we kept hearing over and over again was I couldn't do the loft, so
Right.
but that's why we came up with that design. And then probably the craziest thing was we did the prairie dog house a little while back, and she actually wanted a lot of weird things in that house, but probably the craziest thing was the clawfoot tub. So that's definitely a first. I've never seen another one in a tiny house before, and this is the first time we've done it too. So yeah. So the tiny houses basically they have to be built in such a way that when you're driving them down the road, it's like it's going through a hurricane and an earthquake at the same time. So they have to be structurally sound, be able to take high winds and shaking all at the same time. So we do a lot of research and make sure we're using properly engineered structures, such as structural insulated panels that are able to take winds from 150 to 200 miles per hour, depending on the structure. But our minimum rating on our house is 150 miles per hour winds. And if it's located someplace where there are hurricanes, if your house is anchored down properly, you should have no problems. Compared to like a standard RV, I remember Hurricane Harvey last year. Even though some of those RVs were anchored down, I saw them where the tops were just blown over. So we want to build a structure where we make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And then also, there's different building codes that we adhere to. So we use 2 different building standards actually, and combine them both and meet both standards. And one is ANSI, which regulates the building codes for RVs, and then also Appendix Q of the International Residential Code, which applies specifically to tiny houses. So we make sure that we meet egress requirements, fire extinguisher, smoke detectors, everything that's required for safe living inside a regular home you'd also have in your tiny house.
NOAA.
And NOAA certification, which double checks us on all that stuff. So they do our inspections.
Okay. Is it?
So the range is anywhere from $40,000 to $100,000
Okay.
dollars, depending on the size, and everything you put into it. Probably our average price is around $65,000. The most important thing to look for a tiny home builder is somebody who knows what they're doing. Basically, are they
Do you not
building?
try this at home?
Yeah. Well, I've seen a lot of DIY
Good
tiny
like
houses.
DIYers.
Yeah.
God bless them. They do a good job, but they may not always build to the proper code.
Right. So we got a tiny house from farm, and it was donated to them, but the sleeping loft didn't have proper egress, so the window was too small to get out if there was ever a fire inside the tiny house. So we replaced the window for them and did a few other repairs for them on that house. So you got to and also they had another house that was donated to them where they didn't seal properly around the wheel well, so water was coming in around the wheel well of the tiny house. So we had to take off the siding, seal and flash everything underneath, put the siding back on, and repaint it. So there's a lot of little details like that have to be addressed when you're building a tiny house that most people just don't even think about. So number one, you want to make sure your builder is certified by NOAA or RVIA or some other certification like that. And then number two, what kind of experience do they have? Do they have a background in construction, and how many tiny houses have they built? If they have a background in construction, if it's their first tiny house, it may not be a big deal. But if they don't, then if they're just you know, some guy who sells insurance and decides, hey, I want to build tiny houses now, you know, that, you know, that could be, you know, you could have some problems there.
So show us around this one.
All right, this one we call Big Blue, and this one has an all-pine interior, so it smells really nice in here. I know you can't see that on the video.
Smell-o-vision.
Right. It's got pillow wood windows that crank out, so they just unlock and crank, so really nice high-end windows. It's got a mini split air conditioning system, keeps it nice and cool in here. It's got a solid mahogany spiral ladder here. This was custom built for us by a local carpenter. Using solid mahogany wood, and this is really kind of the crown jewel piece of this tiny house, and you go up it frontward or backwards, so it's easy to climb up and down. This one has a full galley kitchen with this side-by-side fridge underneath the counter, so it's got a fridge freezer underneath the counter with walnut butcher block. Yeah, love the walnut. Feels great, looks great. Lots of drawers with storage. For whatever you need to keep. A full oven. It's not a full-size oven, but it is a 4-burner cooktop with an oven. You can cook a chicken, probably not a turkey in there. So, and then more storage here. And this bathroom does have a shower. This one's a little bit smaller shower than in the baby blue model, but it's still you can take a shower in here relatively easily. It's got a small tub. Yeah, I got a small tub. Not an adult-sized tub, but you can bathe your baby or your dog in there pretty easily. And then it's got a small sink and then a regular flush toilet, so you can a normal flush toilet and some shelving. And then upstairs we've got the sleeping loft. And then in the sleeping loft it goes back 10 feet, and then behind this mosaic here is the closet. So there's a hanging rod there, so you can hang your clothes up, and also shelving alongside that to put your folded clothes. So there's storage for your clothes up there as well. Can you edit that out? So we got